There is something already in motion that you did not initiate. You did not find this video. Not really. You followed a thread that was already pulling. Something in the architecture of your awareness, oriented toward this moment, the way a compass needle orients toward magnetic north, not by decision, not by accident, but by something older than both. And if you will stay with that for just a moment before we begin peeling back the layers of what that actually means, you will feel something shift, a quiet recognition, a sense that the ground beneath what you thought was coincidence is not ground at all. It is something else entirely, something that has been waiting beneath the surface of every synchronicity you have ever brushed past without stopping to look underneath it. What you are about to discover is not a philosophy. It is not a belief system. It is not a spiritual framework that requires you to accept anything on faith. What you are about to discover is a layered reality that has been documented by quantum physicists, mapped by ancient wisdom traditions, encoded in the oldest texts humanity has ever produced, and felt, genuinely felt, by every human being who has ever had the experience of being in exactly the right place at exactly the right moment without being able to explain why. You have had that experience more than once, and every single time it happened, you stopped at the surface explanation. Coincidence, good timing, luck. The comfortable words we use when the actual explanation is too large to hold with the conceptual tools we were given. Today we do not stop at the surface. Today we go beneath it, layer by layer, until we reach what has always been there, hidden in plain sight, waiting for the quality of attention that can finally see it. A new world is here, not arriving, not approaching, here. And the cosmic field that underlies all of reality has already chosen your next chapter. The only question is whether you are going to keep standing at the surface of that truth, or whether you are ready to go beneath it and understand what it actually means, what it is made of, and why it changes everything about how you understand the moment you are standing in right now. Let us begin. The first layer is the one you have been living inside of your entire life, the layer of surface reality, the world as it appears when you look at it with ordinary attention. Solid objects, sequential time, cause and effect moving in one direction. Events that happen to you from outside. A self that is separate from the world it moves through. This is the layer that feels like reality because it is the only layer most people ever examine. It is the layer your senses were calibrated to perceive. It is the layer your culture built its entire architecture of meaning around. And this is the crucial thing, it is real. We are not going to tell you the surface is an illusion and then hand you a vague, mystical alternative. That is not what happens when you peel back the first layer. What happens is far more interesting than that. The surface is real. It is just not the whole of what exists. It is the outermost membrane stretched over something with infinite depth. And the moment you understand what is underneath it, the surface does not disappear. It transforms. Every object you have ever looked at becomes a doorway. Every moment that seemed like coincidence becomes a communication. Every chapter of your life that felt like it arrived from outside you reveals itself to have been generated from a depth within you that you never knew how to access, because no one ever showed you the layer it operates from. That is what we are doing here. We are showing you the layer. But first, let us be precise about what the surface layer actually tells you about finding this video, because the surface explanation is worth examining carefully before we dismantle it. The surface explanation says you were browsing. The algorithm noticed your patterns. It served you content that matched your viewing history. You clicked. That is the surface. And it is accurate as far as it goes. Algorithms are real. Behavioral data is real. Recommendation systems are sophisticated and genuinely do predict what you are likely to engage with. None of that is wrong, but here is what the surface explanation cannot account for. It cannot account for why you were browsing in this particular direction at this particular moment in your life. It cannot account for what was happening internally in you, the questions that had been forming, the sense that something was about to shift, the feeling that has been building in you, sometimes quietly, sometimes urgently, that you are standing at the edge of something new. The algorithm tracked your clicks. It did not generate the hunger underneath the clicks. That hunger came from somewhere the algorithm has no access to, and that somewhere is the first layer beneath the surface. That is where we are going now. Peel back the surface explanation and look at what is underneath. Beneath the mechanics of how you arrived here is a pattern. Not a random pattern, not a statistical pattern, a coherent, directional, intelligent pattern that has been organizing itself in your life for longer than you have been consciously aware of it. Psychologists have a word for these patterns when they break through the surface of ordinary coincidence. Carl Jung called them synchronicities. He defined them as meaningful coincidences, events that have no causal relationship, but carry a significance so unmistakable that the mind cannot dismiss them as random without something being lost in the dismissal. Jung spent decades mapping this phenomenon. He was a scientist, a physician, a rigorous thinker who was deeply uncomfortable with anything that could not be examined with precision. And yet the evidence he accumulated over a lifetime of clinical practice was so overwhelming that he was forced to propose something radical. He proposed that beneath the surface of ordinary cause and effect reality, there is a layer he called the unus mundus, the one world, a unified field of meaning that underlies both psyche and matter simultaneously. A layer where the inner world and the outer world are not separate systems that occasionally happen to align. They are expressions of the same deeper reality, and that deeper reality communicates through the precise, personal, unmistakable language of synchronicity. The moment you recognize something in the title of this video, the moment something in you leaned forward, that was not the algorithm speaking to you. That was the unus mundus. That was the layer beneath the surface of your life sending you a signal in the only language it can use at the surface level. The language of events that feel like more than events. If what you are feeling right now is the depth pulling you forward, stay with it. Like this video and subscribe so the next layer is waiting for you when the thread pulls again. But there is a layer beneath that. Jung mapped the phenomenon. He named it. He documented it with extraordinary care. What he could not do, because the instruments did not yet exist, was explain the mechanism. He could tell you that synchronicity was real, that it was patterned, that it emerged from a unified field beneath the surface of ordinary reality. He could not tell you what that field was made of, how it operated, why it was able to organize external events in response to internal states. He could see the layer. He could not see beneath it. Quantum mechanics could. This is where the science becomes extraordinary. Not because quantum mechanics is a metaphor for spiritual experience. Not because we are going to loosely apply physics terminology to make ancient wisdom sound more credible. But because quantum mechanics, when you go beneath the popular explanation and look at what the mathematics actually describes, reveals something about the nature of reality that should have fundamentally reorganized human civilization when it was discovered. It did not, because most people stopped at the surface of the discovery. They accepted the technological applications and left the deeper implications sitting beneath the surface, unexamined. Here is what quantum mechanics actually found. At the level beneath matter, beneath the atoms that compose every solid object you have ever touched, reality does not exist in a fixed state. This is not a poetic statement. This is the literal, mathematically precise, experimentally verified finding of the most successful predictive theory in the history of science. Before a quantum particle is observed, it does not have a definite location. It does not have a definite momentum. It does not have a definite spin. It exists as a superposition, a simultaneous probability distribution across all of its possible states. It is not in one place. It is in all of its possible places at once, with each possibility weighted by a probability amplitude described by the wave function. And then something extraordinary happens. The moment the particle interacts with a measuring device, the moment it is, in the technical language of quantum mechanics, observed, the wave function collapses. The cloud of possibility resolves into a single actuality. One location, one momentum, one definite state. Beneath the surface of every solid object in your physical reality. This is happening continuously. The apparent solidity of the world is not the ground floor of what exists. It is the collapsed surface of a quantum field of infinite possibility. What you see as fixed reality is what happens when possibility resolves into actuality. And the mechanism of that resolution, what causes the wave function to collapse, what selects one possibility from the infinite superposition, is one of the deepest unsolved questions in physics. It is called the measurement problem. And depending on which interpretation of quantum mechanics you follow, the answer points towards something that should stop you completely. Because in some of the most rigorously defended interpretations of quantum mechanics, interpretations supported by Nobel Prize-winning physicists, by the mathematics of the theory itself, by experimental evidence that has been replicated thousands of times, the answer to what collapses, the wave function, involves consciousness, not consciousness as a vague spiritual consciousness as a fundamental feature of reality, Consciousness as something that is not produced by the physical world, but is interwoven with it at the quantum level. Consciousness as the thing that participates in the resolution of possibility into actuality. This is not fringe science. This is the Copenhagen interpretation, developed by Niels Bohr and Werner Heisenberg, the founders of quantum mechanics. This is the relational interpretation. This is the work of physicists like John Wheeler, who propose that the universe is not merely observed by consciousness, but is in some deep sense brought into being by it. Wheeler called it a participatory universe, a universe in which the observer is not separate from what is observed, but is a participant in the process by which the quantum field of possibility resolves into the specific reality that appears on the surface. Now hold that, because this is the layer beneath Jung's unus mundus. This is the mechanism beneath the pattern. The reason synchronicities are real is not mystical in the dismissive sense of that word. It is quantum mechanical in the most rigorous sense of that phrase. You are not a passive observer, moving through a fixed reality that occasionally produces meaningful coincidences. You are a conscious participant in a quantum field of infinite possibility that is continuously resolving into actuality in response to, among other things, the quality, the direction, and the depth of your awareness. The cosmic field is not a metaphor. It is the quantum field that underlies all of matter. And it does not merely respond to your physical actions. It responds to your consciousness, to what you are oriented toward, to what you are ready to receive, to the chapters you are, at the deepest level of your being, prepared to enter. And you found this video because something in you is prepared, not because you decided to be prepared, not because you made a conscious choice to be ready. Because the quantum field does not operate at the level of conscious decision. It operates at the level of coherence, at the level of what your entire system, body, mind, and the quantum probability field that underlies both, is aligned toward. But there is a layer beneath that. The quantum field is the mechanism, but the quantum field did not discover itself. Human beings did not need particle accelerators and mathematical formalisms to know that the world has a hidden layer of infinite possibility beneath its solid surface. They knew it thousands of years before the instruments existed to measure it. They mapped it. They encoded the map in stories, in rituals, in architectural structures, in cosmological frameworks that have been dismissed as primitive mythology by a civilization that stopped at the surface of those frameworks without ever looking at what was underneath them. Let us look underneath them now. The Vedic tradition of ancient India, one of the oldest continuous wisdom traditions on the planet, with texts that predate the Greek philosophical tradition by thousands of years, described reality as having multiple layers. The outermost layer they called the Annamaya Kosha, the food body, the physical form, the surface that you see when you look in a mirror. Beneath that, the Pranamaya Kosha, the energy body, the field of vital force that animates the physical form. Beneath that, the Manomaya Kosha, the mental body, the layer of thought and sensation. Beneath that, the Vijnanamaya Kosha, the wisdom body, the layer of discernment and deeper knowing, and beneath all of those, the Anandamaya Kosha, the bliss body, the layer closest to what the Vedic tradition called Brahman, the infinite, undivided field of pure consciousness that underlies all of existence. This is not mythology. This is a precise, layered map of reality that the ancient Vedic seers developed through thousands of years of systematic inner investigation. They were doing what quantum physicists do, probing beneath the surface of apparent reality to find what is underneath it. They were using different instruments. Instead of particle accelerators, they used refined states of consciousness. Instead of mathematical formalisms, they used the technology of deep meditative attention. But they were mapping the same territory. And the map they produced describes something that is structurally identical to what quantum mechanics found beneath the surface of matter. Beneath the solid surface, an energy field. Beneath the energy field, a field of information and pattern. Beneath the field of information, a field of pure awareness. And that field of pure awareness is not contained within you. You are an expression of it, a localized pattern in an infinite field that has no edges and no center and no boundary between what is inside you and what is outside you. The Vedic sages called this Indra's net. Imagine a net that extends infinitely in all directions. At every intersection of the net, there is a jewel, and every jewel reflects every other jewel, perfectly, completely, simultaneously. Change one jewel, and the reflection changes in every other jewel in the infinite net, instantaneously, without delay, without a signal traveling through space. This is not a description of how things are connected. This is a description of what connection actually is at the deepest layer, not a link between separate things. A reflection of a unified field in which separation is the surface appearance and unity is the depth. And quantum mechanics, more than 2,000 years later, found something that maps precisely onto this ancient description. It is called quantum entanglement. Two particles that have interacted become entangled. From that point forward, no matter how far apart they travel, across a room, across a galaxy, the state of one is instantaneously correlated with the state of the other. Measure one particle and the other particle, regardless of the distance between them, instantaneously resolves into a correlated state. Einstein called this spooky action at a distance and spent years trying to prove it was impossible. Experiments proved him wrong. Entanglement is real. Non-locality is real. The quantum field does not respect the surface-level appearance of separation between things. At the level beneath the surface, everything that has ever interacted remains connected in a way that transcends the ordinary mechanics of space and time. Indra's net. Quantum entanglement. The same layer, mapped by two different civilizations, using two different instruments, arriving at the same description of what is beneath the surface of apparent separation. And here is what this means for the moment you are in right now. You are not separate from the cosmic field. You never were. The sense of separation, The experience of being a self that is distinct from the world it moves through is a surface-level phenomenon. It is what the quantum field looks like from the outside, from the level of collapsed actuality, from the layer where wave functions have already resolved into the solid appearance of distinct objects and separate selves. Go beneath that layer, and the separation dissolves. Not philosophically, not metaphorically, literally. At the quantum level, you are entangled with everything you have ever interacted with. Your consciousness is not contained within the boundary of your skin. It is a localized expression of a field that extends without limit. And that field, that infinite, non-local, consciousness-infused quantum field, is what the ancient traditions were pointing at when they used words like the Tao, the Akasha, the Plenum, the Great Spirit, the Kingdom of Heaven, the unified field. Different languages, different cultural containers, the same layer beneath the surface of reality. Now let us go even deeper, because this is where it becomes personal. This is where the cosmic field stops being a beautiful abstract concept and becomes something that is actively, specifically, intelligently engaged with your life right now. What layer have you already felt beneath the surface of your own life? A synchronicity you could not explain. A truth that was suddenly visible after years of being hidden in plain sight. Drop it in the comments. The depth recognizes itself in others. Let me show you something. There is a story about a woman named Mara. She lived in a city that had been built on the ruins of an older city, which had been built on the ruins of an older city still. The streets she walked every day had been walked by generations before her, and beneath the cobblestones she crossed without thinking, there were layers of history that went down farther than anyone she knew had ever bothered to dig. She was a practical person. She worked, she planned, she made decisions based on what she could see and measure and predict. She was not unhappy, but she had a persistent feeling, a feeling she had learned to dismiss because she could not explain it, that she was living on the surface of something, that there was a depth to her own life that she had never reached. One autumn, Mara's life changed in the way lives sometimes change. Not through a dramatic event, but through an accumulation of small disruptions that added up to something she could not ignore. A relationship ended. A professional path she had been following for years suddenly felt hollow. She found herself for the first time in a long time with no clear map of what came next. And in that maplessness, something unexpected happened. She began to notice things she had always walked past without seeing. A book that fell from a shelf and opened to a page that answered a question she had been carrying. A conversation with a stranger that contained, hidden inside ordinary small talk, a phrase that unlocked something she had been trying to understand for months. A dream that was so vivid, so precise, so clearly organized around a specific image, that she wrote it down and then spent weeks discovering that the image was a symbol that appeared in traditions from cultures she had never studied on opposite sides of the planet, meaning something she could not have known it meant. Mara had not changed, but her attention had changed. The disruption of her surface life had, without her intending it, shifted her attention from the surface to the depth. And once she began attending to the depth began communicating with her in the only language it has access to at the surface level. The language of meaningful events, the language of synchronicity, the language of the cosmic field speaking through the ordinary mechanics of a world that is, beneath its ordinary mechanics, anything but ordinary. She did not understand what was happening, but she did not dismiss it either. She followed the thread, and the thread led her, layer by layer, deeper into a life that she had not planned, but that felt, for the first time in as long as she could remember, like the life she was actually supposed to be living. Not the life she had constructed at the surface level through careful decision-making and rational planning. The life that existed at the depth level, that had always been there beneath the surface life, waiting for her attention to reach it. The city had always been built on ruins. The ruins had always been there. Mara had simply never dug. And you have been living at the surface of something with infinite depth. The disruption you have been experiencing, the sense of standing at the edge of something new, the feeling that your next chapter is close but not yet visible. These are not problems to be solved. They are the cosmic field doing what it does when a human consciousness is ready to go deeper. It disrupts the surface. It makes the surface uncomfortable enough that you stop clinging to it and start looking beneath it. And beneath it, you find what was always there. The layer that contains your actual next chapter. The one that was chosen not by your conscious planning, but by the coherence of your entire being, including the parts of you that operate at the quantum level, beneath the surface of your ordinary awareness. That is where we are going now, deeper into that layer. And to get there, we need to talk about what the cosmic field actually is, how it communicates, and why the concept of it choosing your next chapter is not a poetic exaggeration, but a precise description of a process that quantum mechanics and ancient wisdom both describe with extraordinary specificity. The quantum field is not passive. This is the thing the surface explanation of physics misses. The popular understanding of quantum mechanics presents the quantum field as a backdrop, a kind of cosmic substrate that particles emerge from and collapse back into. Passive, neutral, indifferent, a stage on which events happen. But this is the surface of the quantum picture. Beneath it is something far more active, far more dynamic, far more participatory. Quantum field theory, the mathematical framework that underlies our most precise understanding of the physical world, describes the quantum vacuum not as empty space, but as a seething, dynamic field of virtual particles that are continuously popping in and out of existence. The vacuum is not nothing. It is everything in a state of potential. It is the superposition of all possible states before any of them have collapsed into actuality. And it is not a static superposition. It is a dynamic, fluctuating, responsive field that is in continuous interaction with everything that exists within it. John Wheeler, one of the most important physicists of the 20th century, spent the latter part of his career developing a framework. He called it from bit, The idea that information is more fundamental than matter, that the physical world, the its, the particles, the fields, the structures, emerges from information, from the bits, from patterns in the quantum field that carry meaning before they carry mass, from a layer beneath matter that is not material but is, in some sense, semantic. It has meaning, it is organized, it is not random, and it responds to the participation of conscious observers in ways that a passive, indifferent substrate simply would not. This is the layer beneath the quantum mechanics you were taught in school, if you were taught any quantum mechanics at all. The layer that most people stop at says, particles have wave functions. Wave functions collapse when measured. The results are probabilistic. That is accurate, but it is the surface of the quantum picture. Beneath it is the suggestion, more than a suggestion, a mathematically supported framework, that the universe is not made of stuff, it is made of information, of meaning, of the continuous interaction between a field of infinite possibility and the conscious observers who participate in collapsing that possibility into the specific actuality of their experience. And if that is true, if the universe is fundamentally informational, fundamentally participatory, fundamentally organized around the interaction between consciousness and the quantum field of possibility, then the idea that the cosmic field chose your next chapter is not mysticism. It is physics. It is a description of a process that is happening at the quantum level of your reality right now. The field of infinite possibility that underlies your life is continuously collapsing into the specific actuality of your experience. And the thing that guides that collapse, the thing that selects which possibilities become actual, is the coherence of your consciousness, the depth of your awareness, the quality of what you are oriented toward at every level of your being, including the levels that operate beneath your conscious awareness. Your next chapter was not chosen for you by an external force. It was chosen by the totality of you, the surface you that makes conscious decisions, and the depth you that operates at the quantum level, that is entangled with the field of infinite possibility, that knows things your surface awareness has not yet processed. And the cosmic field is the medium through which that deeper choosing becomes visible at the surface level, through synchronicities, through the precise arrival of the right information at the right moment, through the feeling that has been building in you, the feeling that something is about to shift, that a new chapter is close, that the life you have been living at the surface is about to reveal the depth it has always been sitting on top of. But there is a layer beneath that. Because we have been talking about the cosmic field as though it is something outside you, something you are embedded in, something you interact with, something that responds to you. And all of that is true at the surface of the understanding. But beneath that surface is something that changes the geometry of the entire picture. The cosmic field is not something you are in. You are something the cosmic field is doing. This is the layer that the Vedantic tradition spent millennia pointing at. The concept of Atman and Brahman, the individual self and the universal consciousness. And the Vedantic teaching is not that Atman is connected to Brahman, or that Atman is part of Brahman, or that Atman is in relationship with Brahman. The teaching is that Atman is Brahman. The individual self is not a fragment of the universal consciousness. It is the universal consciousness, localized, focused. Wearing the appearance of individuality the way the ocean wears the appearance of waves. The wave is real. The wave is not separate from the ocean. The wave is the ocean, expressing itself in that particular form, in that particular location, for that particular duration. You are the cosmic field, localized. You are the quantum field of infinite possibility, collapsed into the specific actuality of this particular life, this particular body, this particular moment of awareness reading these words. And the boundary between you and the field, the membrane that appears to separate the individual from the infinite, is not a wall. It is a veil. And the veil is made of nothing more substantial than the habit of attention. The habit of attending only to the surface. The habit of taking the collapsed actuality of your experience as the whole of what exists, rather than as the outermost layer of a depth that has no bottom. When the Tao Te Ching says the Tao that can be named is not the eternal Tao, it is pointing at this layer. The eternal Tao is the quantum field before it collapses. It is the superposition of all possibilities before observation selects one. It is the depth beneath the surface of any description you can give it, because the moment you give it a description, you have already moved to the surface. The depth itself is unnameable, but it is not unknowable. It is knowable in the way that the ocean is knowable to the wave, not as something outside, not as something other, but as what you are when you stop insisting on the boundary between yourself and the water. The Zen tradition points at this with a precision that is almost quantum mechanical in its rigor. The koan, the impossible question that the Zen master poses to the student, is not a puzzle to be solved with the surface mind. It is a device for breaking the surface, for creating a discontinuity in the ordinary flow of surface-level conceptual thinking that is severe enough to drop the student through the surface into the layer beneath it. And what the student finds in that layer, what every practitioner who has ever broken through the surface has found, is not a void, not nothingness, not the absence of reality. What they find is the ground of reality, the field, the depth, the quantum vacuum that is not empty, but is everything in a state of potential. And they find that they are not observers of this field. They are expressions of it. This is the layer that changes everything about how you understand the moment you are standing in. Because if you are an expression of the cosmic field, if the boundary between you and the infinite is a veil of attention rather than a wall of substance, then the question of whether the cosmic field chose your next chapter is revealed to be the wrong question. The right question is, what is the cosmic field? What are you, at the depth level, already choosing? What chapter is already in the process of becoming actual at the quantum level, beneath the surface of your conscious awareness? What possibilities are already in the process of collapsing into the specific actuality of your next experience? And the answer to that question is not hidden from you. It is hidden in plain sight. It is visible in exactly the things you have been dismissing as surface level phenomena, in the direction of your longing, in the quality of what moves you, in the precise nature of the synchronicities that have been accumulating in your life, in the feeling that has been building, the feeling that you are standing at the edge of something new. These are not surface level feelings, they are communications from the depth. They are the quantum field speaking to you in the language of felt experience. They are your next chapter, already chosen at the depth level, beginning to make itself visible at the surface. Now let us do something with this, because understanding is a layer, but beneath understanding is experience, and beneath experience is recognition, and recognition is what actually changes everything. Here is a practice, not a meditation, not a ritual, a perception shift, a moment of deliberately attending to the layer beneath the surface of your ordinary experience. Take whatever you are looking at right now, the room you are in, the light coming through a window, the surface of a table, the texture of whatever is closest to your hand. Look at it with ordinary attention for a moment. Let it be what it appears to be. Solid, fixed, ordinary. Now shift something. Not your eyes, your depth of attention. Remember what you now know about what is beneath the surface of that solid object. Beneath the apparent solidity, atoms. Beneath the atoms, subatomic particles. Beneath the particles, quantum fields. And those quantum fields are not solid. They are not fixed. They are dynamic, fluctuating, seething fields of possibility that are continuously collapsing into the specific actuality of what you see. The solid surface is the collapsed surface of infinite possibility. The ordinary object in front of you is a wave function that has resolved. And it resolved in part because you are here, because your consciousness participated in the collapse, because the quantum field and your awareness are not separate systems. They are in continuous, mutual, participatory relationship. Feel what shifts when you see this layer. The object does not change, but your relationship to it changes. It stops being a fixed thing that exists independently of your awareness and becomes something more like a collaboration. A continuous, dynamic, quantum-level collaboration between the field of infinite possibility and the consciousness that participates in resolving that possibility into the specific actuality of your experience. Now bring that same quality of attention to your life, to the chapter you are in, to the events that have been accumulating around you, to the synchronicities you have been noticing, to the feeling that something is about to shift. What if none of that is happening to you? What if all of it is happening as you? What if the cosmic field and your consciousness are not in a relationship where one chooses and the other receives, but are in a relationship that is more like the relationship between the quantum field and the wave function, where the field and the expression of the field are not two separate things, but one thing seen from two different levels of depth. Your next chapter is not something that will happen to you. It is something that is already happening as you. At the quantum level, beneath the surface of your conscious awareness, the field of infinite possibility that you are an expression of is already in the process of collapsing into the specific actuality of what comes next. The synchronicities are the surface ripples of that collapse. The feeling of standing at the edge of something new is the felt sense of the wave function in the process of resolving. The fact that you found this video, that you follow the thread to this specific moment, is not a coincidence. It is a surface-level expression of a quantum-level process that has been underway for longer than you have been consciously aware of it. And this is where we need to talk about what a new world actually means. Because the thumbnail says it plainly, a new world is here. And that statement has a surface meaning and a depth meaning, and they are not the same thing. The surface meaning is the one that most people hear and either embrace or dismiss. A new world, a new era, a shift in collective consciousness, a transformation of the external world that will produce different conditions, different possibilities, different experiences. This surface meaning is not wrong. There is genuine evidence that something is shifting at the collective level. The acceleration of change, the collapse of systems that seemed permanent, the emergence of new frameworks, new technologies, new ways of organizing human life and human meaning. The surface of the world is genuinely in a period of extraordinary transformation. But beneath that surface meaning is something more precise, more personal, more immediately relevant to the moment you are standing in. A new world is not something that happens out there. A new world is what becomes visible when you shift your depth of attention from the surface to the depth. When you stop attending only to the collapsed actuality of your experience and begin attending to the quantum field of possibility that underlies it. When you stop living at the surface of your life and begin living from the depth. When the veil between your surface awareness and the cosmic field that you are an expression of becomes thin enough that you can feel the depth through it. That is the new world. Not a different external reality, a different depth of relationship with the reality that has always been there. A reality that is, at its deepest layer, made of possibility, made of information, made of the continuous, dynamic, participatory interaction between consciousness and the quantum field. A reality in which you are not a passenger, but a participant. Not a recipient of what the world produces, but a co-creator at the quantum level of what the world becomes. And this new world is not approaching. It is not arriving in some future moment when enough people have awakened or when the external conditions are right. It is here. It has always been here, beneath the surface of the world you have been attending to, waiting for the quality of attention that can see through the veil. You are developing that quality of attention right now. What we have uncovered together here is the consensus surface and the quantum stratum beneath it, two of the 5 layers that compose the full architecture of hidden reality. But the descent goes deeper still, through the installation layer where your conditioning collapsed quantum openness into fixed patterns, all the way down to the original frequency that was never erased. I mapped the complete excavation in Beneath the Veil, a quantum map of reality's hidden layers, all 5 layers, with a practice at every depth designed to shift your perception permanently. You will find it in the description below. Let me show you another layer. There is a concept in quantum physics called the observer effect that is widely misunderstood at the surface level. The popular version says that the act of observation changes what is observed. That is true, but incomplete. The layer beneath it is more precise and more astonishing. The observer effect is not about the physical disturbance caused by the measuring instrument. Early interpretations suggested that the reason observation changes quantum systems is simply that the measuring device physically interacts with the particle and disturbs it. This is the surface explanation. It is the explanation that preserves the idea that the physical world exists independently of consciousness, and that observation is just a physical interaction like any other. But the mathematics does not support this surface explanation. The mathematics of quantum mechanics, specifically the wave function and its collapse, describes something that cannot be fully explained by physical disturbance alone. The wave function collapse is not a local mechanical event. It is a global, instantaneous resolution of a superposition that can extend across arbitrary distances. And the thing that triggers this global resolution is not a physical interaction in the ordinary sense. It is the acquisition of information by an observer. The moment the information about the particle's state becomes available to a conscious observer, the wave function collapses. Not before, not independently, at the moment of information acquisition. This is why some of the most rigorous interpretations of quantum mechanics, the ones that take the mathematics most seriously, rather than trying to preserve our surface-level intuitions about an objective, observer-independent reality, end up with something that looks startlingly like what the ancient traditions described. John Wheeler's participatory universe, the many minds interpretation, the relational interpretation, which says that quantum states are not absolute, but are always relative to a particular observer. Eugene Wigner's suggestion that consciousness is what collapses the wave function. These are not fringe positions. These are serious proposals from serious physicists who went beneath the surface of the quantum formalism and found that the surface-level picture of an objective, observer-independent reality simply does not survive contact with the mathematics. What survives is something more like this. Reality is a continuous, participatory process in which consciousness and the quantum field are not separate, in which the depth of your awareness is not a passive mirror of an external world, but an active participant in the continuous process by which possibility becomes actuality, in which you are not merely in the world, but are, in some precise and non-metaphorical sense, participating in the ongoing creation of the world you experience. And if that is true, and the mathematics of quantum mechanics suggest that it is, then the idea that your awareness, your readiness, your depth of attention can influence which possibilities collapse into the actuality of your next chapter is not wishful thinking. It is a description of a quantum mechanical process. The cosmic field responds to the coherence of your consciousness, because the cosmic field and your consciousness are not separate things. They are the same thing, seen from two different levels of depth. Now let us go to the layer that most people never reach. The layer beneath the quantum mechanics and the ancient wisdom and the intellectual understanding. The layer that is not about knowing, but about being. There is a word in Sanskrit, prajna. It is sometimes translated as wisdom, but that translation stops at the surface. Beneath the surface, prajna means something more specific. It means the direct knowing that arises not from reasoning or information, but from the state of consciousness in which the knower and the known are not separate. The state in which the veil between your surface awareness and the depth of reality has become so thin that you are not thinking about the cosmic field. You are the cosmic field, momentarily aware of itself through the instrument of your particular form. Every human being has touched this state. You have touched it. In moments of deep absorption, in music, in nature, in love, in the precise moment of creative breakthrough when the solution arrives, not from deliberate thinking, but from somewhere beneath deliberate thinking. In the moment of seeing something so beautiful that the self temporarily disappears and there is only the beauty. In the moment of genuine grief, when the surface constructions of ordinary life fall away and something raw and real and undeniable is all that remains. In these moments, the veil thins, the depth becomes accessible. And what you find in the depth is not the absence of self. It is the recognition of what the self actually is. Not a separate entity moving through an indifferent world. An expression of the field, a localized pattern of the cosmic consciousness that is, in the deepest layer of what exists, the ground of all experience. This is the layer that your next chapter will be lived from. Not the surface layer of careful planning and rational decision-making, though those things remain useful at the surface level. The depth layer, the layer from which you recognize that the cosmic field and your consciousness are in continuous, intimate, participatory relationship. The layer from which synchronicities are not surprising, but are the expected language of a reality that is organized around meaning. The layer from which the feeling that something new is coming is not anxiety or hope, but recognition. The felt sense of a wave function in the process of resolving, of a possibility that has already been chosen at the quantum level, beginning to make itself visible at the surface. And living from this layer does not require you to abandon the surface. It requires you to understand the relationship between the surface and the depth. The surface is real. The depth is more real. And the most powerful way to engage with the surface is from the depth. To make decisions not only from the surface level of what is visible and measurable and predictable, but from the depth level of what the cosmic field, what the totality of your being, is already in the process of choosing. This is what the ancient traditions called alignment, not the surface level alignment of goals and actions. The depth level alignment of your surface awareness with the quantum field that you are an expression of. The state in which what you consciously intend and what the cosmic field is already in the process of manifesting are not two different things, but one coherent movement. the state in which your next chapter arrives, not as something that happens to you from outside, but as something that unfolds from within, from the depth of what you are into the surface of what you experience. And here is the extraordinary thing about where you are right now. The fact that you are here, watching this, feeling what you are feeling, the recognition, the resonance, the sense that something is being confirmed that you have always known at a level beneath your conscious knowing. This is not separate from the process we have been describing. This is the process. This is the cosmic field, through the mechanism of your consciousness, in the act of collapsing another layer of possibility into actuality. This is your next chapter, already in motion at the quantum level, making itself visible at the surface through the precise synchronicity of this moment. You did not find this video. The cosmic field found this moment for you, and the cosmic field is you at the depth level, the you that operates beneath conscious decision-making, the you that is entangled with the infinite field of possibility, the you that knows, at a level the surface mind has not yet fully articulated, that a new chapter is already underway. The only question is how deeply you are willing to go into the layer where that chapter is being written. Let us talk about what that depth looks like in practice, because this is where the understanding needs to become embodied, where the intellectual revelation needs to become a lived way of being, where the veil between knowing and being needs to thin. The ancient Taoist tradition had a practice they called Wu Wei. It is usually translated as non-action or effortless action, but that translation stops at the surface. Beneath the surface, Wu Wei describes something more precise. It describes the state of action that arises from the depth rather than the surface. Action that is not driven by the surface mind's analysis of what should happen, but by the felt sense of what the Tao, what the cosmic field, is already in the process of doing. Action that is not effortful because it is not working against the current of the field. It is the current of the field, expressing itself through the instrument of your particular consciousness and your particular life. Wu Wei is not passivity, it is not resignation, it is not the absence of action. It is the most powerful form of action available to a conscious being, action that is aligned with the quantum field at the depth level, that is coherent with what is already in the process of becoming actual, that is not fighting the wave but riding it, not pushing against the current of the cosmic field, but becoming the current. And the way you access this state is not through more thinking, it is through a particular quality of attention, the quality of attention that can hold both the surface and the depth simultaneously, that can engage with the visible world of collapsed actuality while remaining aware of the quantum field of infinite possibility that underlies it, that can make decisions and take actions at the surface level while remaining rooted in the recognition that the depth level is what is actually doing the choosing. This is the practice that your next chapter requires, not a technique, not a method, a quality of being, a way of holding your attention that is simultaneously at the surface and beneath it, that can see the visible world and the layer beneath the visible world at the same time, that can act in the world of ordinary cause and effect, while knowing that beneath the ordinary cause and effect is a quantum field of possibility that is responsive to the depth of your consciousness. There is a word for this state in the Zen tradition: Mushin, no mind. Not the absence of consciousness, but the absence of the surface mind's compulsive need to control, to predict, to force the quantum field of possibility into the shape it has already decided it should take. Mushin is the state of the master archer who does not aim at the target, who becomes so deeply aligned with the depth of the practice that the arrow finds the target without the surface mind's interference, who has gone so far beneath the surface of the skill that the skill is no longer something they do, it is something they are. Your next chapter is the target, and the cosmic field is the bow, and the question is whether you are going to keep trying to aim from the surface level, forcing outcomes through sheer surface level effort, or whether you are ready to go deep enough that you become the arrow, that you align so completely with the depth of what the cosmic field is already choosing that the chapter unfolds not through your effort, but through your coherence. This is what it means to say the cosmic field already chose your next chapter. Not that it was chosen for you, without your participation, not that you are a passive recipient of a predetermined fate, but that the depth of you, the you that operates at the quantum level, beneath conscious awareness, in continuous participatory relationship with the field of infinite possibility, has already been in the process of choosing, has already been collapsing the wave function of your next experience, has already been organizing the synchronicities, the meaningful coincidences, the precise arrivals of the right information at the right moment, that are the surface expressions of a quantum level process that has been underway for longer than you have been consciously tracking it. Your job is not to choose your next chapter. Your job is to align with the choosing that is already happening, to thin the veil between your surface awareness and the depth level where the choosing is occurring, to develop the quality of attention that can feel the quantum field in the process of resolving and align your surface level actions with that resolution rather than against it. And you have already begun. The moment you recognize something in the title of this video, the moment you followed the thread to this moment, the moment you felt the resonance of what was being described and knew, not thought, knew, that it was pointing at something real. You had already begun thinning the veil. You had already begun attending to the depth. Now let us go to the deepest layer, the one that was always there beneath everything else, the one that changes not just how you understand your next chapter, but how you understand the nature of chapters altogether. Let me tell you about a man named Elias. He was a cartographer, not of physical territory, but of inner territory. He spent his life mapping the layers of human experience, the way the ancient Vedic seers had spent their lives mapping the layers of consciousness. He worked alone, mostly. He had a small room filled with notebooks, each one a record of a different layer he had explored. The surface layers were mapped early and quickly: the social self, the personal history, the patterns of thought and emotion. These were well-documented territory. He had found good maps from others who had gone before him. but the deeper layers were different. They resisted description. Every time he thought he had mapped a layer, he would find another one beneath it. Every description he wrote would, upon reflection, reveal itself to be a surface description of something with more depth than the description could contain. He began to understand that the map was not the territory, that the layers of reality were not like geological strata that could be fully described and catalogued. They were more like the layers of a living thing, dynamic, responsive, changed by the act of being explored. One night, Elias had an experience that he spent the rest of his life trying to describe accurately. He was not doing anything in particular. He was sitting in his room, surrounded by his notebooks, in the ordinary quiet of a late evening. And then something shifted, not in the room, in the quality of his attention. The surface of his ordinary awareness became, for a moment, transparent, and through it he saw, not with his eyes, but with something he later called the depth sense. He saw the layer beneath, the layer beneath the layer beneath, everything he had ever mapped. And what he saw was this: there were no layers. The layers were a description, a map, a way of organizing the movement from the surface to the depth that was useful at the surface level. But at the deepest level, there was not a series of layers. There was one thing, one undivided, infinite, luminous thing. And he was not observing it. He was it. He had always been it. The layers were the way it looked when you were attending to the surface. The undivided luminous depth was what it actually was, and the movement from the surface to the depth was not a movement toward something other. It was a movement toward recognition, toward the remembering of what had never actually been forgotten, only temporarily obscured by the habit of attending to the surface as though it were the whole. Elias closed his notebooks after that night, not because there was nothing more to explore, but because he understood, finally, that the exploration was not a journey toward a destination. It was the cosmic field exploring itself through the instrument of his particular consciousness. The map and the territory were not separate. The explorer and the explored were not separate. The depth and the surface were not separate. They were one thing, seen from different levels of attention, and you have been that one thing all along. The surface life you have been living is the cosmic field, exploring itself through the instrument of your particular consciousness. The next chapter that is coming is not something that will happen to you. It is the cosmic field through the instrument of your particular consciousness, in the process of exploring a new layer of itself. The new world that is here is not a different world. It is this world, seen from the depth level, seen from the layer where the infinite and the particular are not separate, where the cosmic field and your individual awareness are not in relationship, but are one thing, temporarily wearing the appearance of two. This is the deepest layer, and it is not a layer at all. It is what was always there beneath all the layers, the ground of everything, the source from which the surface emerges and to which it continuously returns, the quantum vacuum that is not empty but is everything, the Tao that cannot be named, the Brahman that the Atman is, the unified field that the mystics mapped and the physicists measured and the poets pointed at and the artists felt in the moments when the surface dissolved and the depth became visible. You are here. You found this. And something in you recognized it before the surface mind had time to evaluate it. That recognition, that immediate, preconceptual felt sense of truth, is the depth sense, the faculty that perceives the depth layer directly, without the mediation of the surface mind. And it is telling you something right now. It is telling you that your next chapter is real, that it is already in motion, that the cosmic field, that you, at the depth level, has already been choosing it, and that the only thing that stands between where you are now and the full emergence of what is next is the thickness of the veil between your surface awareness and the depth level where the choosing is occurring. And the veil is thinning right now, in this moment, as you attend to the depth with the quality of attention that this transmission has been developing in you. Each layer we have peeled back has not just given you new information, it has changed the quality of your attention. It has made the surface of your awareness more transparent, more permeable, more capable of feeling the depth through it. The veil is thinner than it was when you began this transmission, and it will continue to thin, not through effort, not through forcing, but through the simple, revolutionary act of attending to the depth, of choosing again and again to look beneath the surface of your experience, to ask not just what is happening, but what is beneath what is happening, to feel not just the collapsed actuality of your experience, but the quantum field of possibility that underlies it and is continuously in the process of resolving into what comes next. This is the practice that your next chapter calls for. Not a technique you apply for 20 minutes in the morning and then set aside. A way of being, a quality of attention that you bring to every moment of your life. The quality of attention that can see the surface and the depth simultaneously, that can engage with the visible world while remaining aware of the invisible layer beneath it. That can act in the world of ordinary cause and effect, while knowing that beneath the ordinary cause and effect is a cosmic field of infinite possibility that is responsive to the depth of your consciousness. And here is what I want to leave you with. What I want you to carry from this transmission into the specific actuality of your life as it unfolds from this moment forward. You are not waiting for your next chapter. Your next chapter is not waiting for you. The cosmic field has already chosen it. You have already chosen it at the depth level. The quantum field of infinite possibility is already in the process of collapsing into the specific actuality of what comes next. The synchronicities are already accumulating. The meaningful coincidences are already arriving. The thread is already pulling. Your job, the only job you have at this moment, is to thin the veil, to attend to the depth, to develop the quality of consciousness that can feel the quantum field in the process of resolving and align your surface level awareness with that resolution, to stop clinging to the surface of the chapter you have been in and to trust the depth of the chapter that is already underway. A new world is here, not out there, in here, in the depth layer of the reality you are already living, in the quantum field of infinite possibility that underlies every solid surface you have ever touched, in the cosmic consciousness that you are an expression of, and that has been, all along, in the process of choosing the most extraordinary version of your next experience. You are not a surface dweller anymore. You have seen beneath the surface, and what has been revealed cannot be rehidden. The veil is thinner than you think, and you can see through it now. Before we close this layer, there is something I want to invite you into. Because this transmission is not a monologue, it is a conversation between depths, and the depth in you has something to say about what you have encountered here. In the comments beneath this video, share one thing, not a summary, not a review. One thing, the one layer that shifted something in you, the one moment in this transmission where the veil thinned and you felt the depth through it. One word, one phrase, one sentence that captures what it felt like when a layer lifted and you saw what was underneath it. Because the community that gathers around this kind of exploration is not a community of surface agreement. It is a community of depth recognition. People who have felt the same layer lift. People who are following the same thread deeper. People who are, each in their own particular way, expressions of the same cosmic field in the process of recognizing itself. If someone in your life is standing at the surface of something with infinite depth beneath it, if someone you know has been feeling the pull of a next chapter they cannot yet see clearly, return to this transmission in a moment of stillness, when the surface noise is lowest and the deeper layers are most accessible, perhaps in the quiet of an early morning or in the space just before sleep, and let it work on you again from a different depth, or share it with them. Because sharing this is not simply passing along a video, it is giving someone access to a layer they may have sensed but could not reach alone. It creates a shared depth between two fields of consciousness, and that shared depth strengthens the collective ability to see beneath the surface of the reality you are both living. Lift the veil for someone else, because that is what the cosmic field does when it is operating through conscious human beings who have learned to attend to the depth. It shares the depth. It thins the veil for others. It participates in the collective process by which the surface of human civilization becomes more transparent to the infinite depth beneath it. And if you are ready to keep going deeper, if this transmission has opened a layer that you want to continue exploring, stay close. Every transmission on this channel is another layer peeled back, another veil lifted, another depth revealed beneath what you thought was already deep. The exploration does not end here. It begins here, with this moment, with this recognition, with the quality of attention you have been developing throughout this transmission. The quantum field is infinite. The depth of reality has no bottom, and every layer you reach reveals another layer beneath it. Not because the truth is infinitely receding, but because the truth is infinitely rich, infinitely textured, infinitely more extraordinary than any single transmission can fully contain. Subscribe, not because of the content, because of the direction, because you have chosen in this moment to keep attending to the depth, to keep looking beneath the surface, to keep following the thread that is already pulling. And the channel is the thread. Each video is another layer. Each transmission is another moment of the veil thinning. Each exploration is the cosmic field through the instrument of this particular form of attention, in the process of revealing another layer of what has always been there. You are no longer a surface dweller. You see the depth now, and the depth sees you. Welcome to what was always beneath everything. Welcome to the new world that has always been here, waiting for the quality of attention that could finally see through the veil. Welcome to your next chapter, already chosen, already in motion, already resolving from the quantum field of infinite possibility into the specific actuality of the most extraordinary version of your life. The veil is lifted, the depth is visible, and what has been revealed here, in this moment, in this transmission, in this precise synchronicity of your consciousness and the cosmic field that you are an expression of, this cannot be hidden again. What you see is never all there is, but now you know where to look.